Specific Relief Act 1963, Part 1, Preliminary, Section 1 to 4. The word and expression used in the Specific Relief Act but not defined in the Act have same meaning as defined in the Indian Contract Act, Section 2E. Which section of the Specific Relief Act 1963 provide that specific relief to be granted only for enforcing civil right, not enforcing the penal law? Section 4. Find out the correct statement of specific relief can be granted for enforcing the individual civil right, not enforcing the individual penal law. Specific relief under Specific Relief Act 1963 can be granted for enforcing only individual civil right. Specific relief can be granted for enforcing penal law, enforcing individual civil right. One is wrong. For enforcing civil right only. Specific relief is granted for enforcing individual civil right. Under Specific Relief Act 1963, the relief may be granted for enforcing individual civil right. Specific Relief Act 1963 came into the operation on 1st of March 1964. Part 2, Specific Relief, Chapter 1, Recovery and Possession of the Property, Section 5 to 8. Mere possession of the title enough to maintain an action under Section 5 of Specific Relief Act 1963. Which one of the following section of Specific Relief Act deal with the recovery of specific movable property? Section 7. An order or decree passed in a suit presented under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act neither appealable nor reviewable. A suit for the recovery for the possession under Section 6 cannot be filed against a government. A question of the title is irrelevant under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act 1963. Suit for disposition of immovable property under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act 1963 should be brought within 6 months from the date of the disposition. Under the Specific Relief Act 1963, a suit for the recovery of possession can be filed in the report of both movable and immovable property. A suit for the possession of immovable property under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act can be filed between 6 months of the disposition. No suit for the recovery of possession may be initiated under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act against government. Under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act, a tenant can file a suit for the possession even against the landlord on the ground that he was unlawfully disposed by the landlord. No question of title, either plaintiff or defendant, can be raised or gone into the case. No suit under 6 of the Act for the recovery of the possession of immovable property may be instituted a person disposed without the consent of against the government. A person is disposed of an immovable property without due course of law. When can he bring a suit for the recovery of possession under Section 6 of the Act for a period 6 months? Limitation to file a suit for the recovery of a specific immovable property under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act 6 months. A suit for the recovery of possession of immovable property under Section 6 of a Specific Relief Act can be filed against a private individual only. Saroja was granted a government land. She was disposed without her consent. She instituted the suit against the government under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act 1963. For recovering the possession of the property, the court rejected the plaint under Order 7 Rule 11D of the CPC. Whether the rejection is proper? Yes, because suit under Section 6 against the government would not be lie. Under Section 6 of SRA, the person cannot sue for recovery of the possession of immoral property after 6 months from the date of dispossessed. A suit for recovery of possession of immoral property under Section 6 of SRA is filed against a private individual. In a suit under Section 6 of SRA, court can none of the above. As a shopkeeper has kept a good for sale on the pavement outside the shop and constructed temporary overhead shield, flying squad of NCT of Delhi demolished the temporary construction and seized the good for the payment without giving him any notice. 1 year after, as filed a suit for the recovery of the possession of payment against NCT of Delhi under Section 6 of an Specific Relief Act. The suit is barred as filed against the government after the period prescribed. The limitation period of the filing the suit of a person dispossessed of immovable property is within 6 months from the date of the disposition. Under Section 6 of SRA, suit by a person disposed of immovable property shall be brought after the expiry of 6 months from the date of disposition. Under Section 6 of SRA, a suit for disposition of immovable property can be filed within 6 months of the disposition. Which section provides the specifically remedy for the provision by way of summary procedure from a person disposed of immovable property without the consent and otherwise due course of law? Section 6 of SRA. What is a time limit for filing a suit for recovery of possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA? 6 months from the disposition. No suit for the recovery of possession may be instituted by a person dispossessed without the consent of immovable property, otherwise done in due course of law against the government. A suit for the possession of immovable property under Section 6 of SRA can be filed within 6 months from the disposition. A suit filed by the plaintiff P and D against Section 6, the act is decree in the favor of P. The remedy against the decree of P is filed within revision. Which one of the following section of SRA deal with the recovery of immovable property? Section 6. Which one of the following is incorrect with the reference of Section 6 of SRA 1963? In this section, bar the person for suing and establishing the title of the property. If a person is disposed without the consent of immovable property, otherwise than the due course of law, he may institute a suit for the recovery of possession, notwithstanding anything other title than may be set up in suit within 6 months from the date of the disposition. A, B, C are co-partner. A is in the separate possession of the joint family property. He sell it to the B and put D in the possession. B and C sue the declaration of title for that property in the joint family property of the court. Court will dismiss the suit as the plaintiff are in the possession to claim the consequential relief of the possession. Under Section 7 of SRA, a person is entitled to the possession of a specific movable property may recover in the manner provided by which legislator Code of Civil Procedure. Under Section 7 of SRA, the recovery of the movable property can be made by finder of movable property, buyer of movable property, bailee of movable property. Under Section 7 of the SRA, recovery of a specific movable property may be recovered in the manner provided Code of Civil Procedure 1908. A suit under Section 8 of SRA is not competent against a person who is the owner of article claim. Section 8 of SRA can be invoked against the person who has possession and control over the article. Section 8 of SRA cannot be invoked against the person who is the owner of the property. Section 8 of SRA 1963 can be invoked in the article as held by person as an agent, trustee or the claimant. Suit under Section 8 of SRA is not competent against a person who is the owner of the article claim. Following is not an essential condition for the applicability of Section 8 for specific relief act. Defendant must be the owner of the property is not its essential condition. Which one is its essential condition are? The article must be movable property. The plaintiff must be entitled to immediate possession of the article. The article must be in the possession of the control and of the defendant. The suit of the recovery of the possession based on the previous possession of the person can be filed by such a person even against the real owner of the property who has disposed him within the 6 months from the date of his disposition. The engagement diamond ring of N was stolen by T, a theft, who sold the jewelry. N filed a suit for recovery of ring against J. J contended that he is ready to pay the price of the ring. Whether the decree of the recovery of diamond ring can be refused on the ground that none of these. It is the principle of law that a person who has been long and continuous possession can protect the same seeking injunction against any person in the world than the true owner. True. Chapter 2. Specific performance of contract, Section 9 to 25. Section 9 of Specific Relief Act 1963 provide for the defense which a person against whom the relief is specific performance is claimed may plead. Section 10 of Specific Relief Act 1963 provided for the contract which can be specifically enforced. In the case of breach of contract of sale of immoral property, the court shall draw a presumption that breach of contract can be adequate relief for the money compensation. Under Section 10 of Specific Performance Act, the specific performance can be granted if there is no concluded contract. Section 11 of the Specific Relief Act referred specific performance of contract connected with trusts. Under Section 11 of the Specific Relief Act 1930, the contract may be trustee in excess of his power in the breach of trust is not specifically enforceable. Section 11 of Specific Relief Act 1930 provided for a specific performance of contract connected with the trust. Section 12 Clause 2 of Specific Relief Act applied where the party which remained unperformed of a contract is a small proportion. A specific performance of a part of the contract has been dealt with under Section 12 of Specific Relief Act 1963. For Section 12 Clause 4 of Specific Relief Act 1963 apply for both A and B. The party of the contract must be divisible. The party can be specifically enforced in the independent and separate from other part. In a case of a specific performance of the part of contract, the purchaser may be relinquish claim to further performance of the remaining part of the contract has right of the compensation. The provision regarding the specific performance of part of the contract are contained under the Specific Relief Act under Section 12. Section 12 of the Specific Relief Act apply where the part remain unperformed of the contract is small. Under Section 12, Clause 2 of Specific Relief Act 1963, part performance of contract can be enforceable by the promisor, the promisee. Which one of the following section deal with the specific performance of the part of the contract? Section 12. Under Section 12 of the Specific Relief Act, general rule is that the specific performance of the part of the contract shall not be granted. Section 13 of SRA has no application where the transfer has been effected in respect of the property in which vendor has title. Which one of the following contract cannot be specifically enforced as per the provision of Section 14 of the Specific Relief Act? A. Contract to marry B. A. Contract with B that consideration of 1,000 rupees to be paid to him by B. He will be paint the picture of B. A is the author of the contract with B and A is the publisher of the contract literally at work. Which section of the Specific Relief Act 1963 provide about specific performance of contract which cannot be specifically contracted? Section 14. Contracts are specifically enforceable have been enumerated in Section 14 of SRA. In which one of the following section of specific performance of any contract not be enforceable by the court where the compensation in money can be afforded for the non-performance of contract as adequate relief? Which one of the following contract can be specifically enforced as per the provision of Section 14 of the Act? Contract which is determinable in its nature. Contract with B to sing a 12-month at B theatre and not to sing in the public elsewhere. B cannot obtain the specific performance to sing, but he is entitled to the injunction restraint, a form of singing at the time at any other place public entertainment. Which one of the following contract cannot be specifically enforced as per the provision of Section 14 of the Act? Contract which is determinable in the nature. A specific performance of contract is allowed where compensation is not adequate relief. When the following contract is specifically enforceable to perform a singing program? In which one of the following case the specific performance of contract will not be ordered? Where pecuniary compensation would afford the adequate relief, where the act would be required to contain supervision of the court, where the contract provides for personal affirmative of the person service. Which section of the Specific Relief Act deal with the contract not specifically enforceable? Section 14. The following contract cannot be specifically enforceable: a contract which is in its nature determinable. Which one is specifically performable? A contract which execute and die subsequently. Contract not specifically enforceable are all contract for the non-performance of which compensation in the money is adequate relief, contract which run into the minute of numerous detail, a contract of the performance which involve the performance of continuous duty of the court cannot be supervised. A specific performance of contract may be enforced if compensation in money is adequate relief. Under Section 15 of Specific Relief Act, the specific performance of contract may be obtained by any party of the contract, any representative in the interest of the party of the contract, the principal of any party of the contract. Which one of the following section deal with the personal bar and remedy of a specific relief? Section 16. Within the meaning of section 15 of SRA, the zani fall within the meaning of representative in interest and principle. A specific performance of contract cannot be enforced in the favor of a person who would not be entitled for recovery of compensation for its breach, who has become incapable of performing and violates any essential term of the contract that of his part remain to performed, who fail to ever to prove that has performed or has always been ready to willing to perform the essential term of contract which are to be performed by him. Provision regarding the person who may obtain specific performance are specified in the section 15 of the Specific Relief Act 1963. A suit for the specific performance of contract for enforcement can be decreed when there exists no standard for asserting the actual damage caused by the non-performance of it. The defendant is in the possession of 120 cotton balls as the agent of the plaintiff. The plaintiff files a suit for a specific performance of contract against the defendant to compel the delivery the same. The relief claim can be refused on the ground that compensation in term of money would be afford the adequate relief. Under which section of SRA, the ready and willingness is necessary condition for a specific performance of contract. Section 16 clause C. Which one of the following statement is correct? A court, while refusing to grant the specific performance of contract, cannot grant the refund of earnest money paid by the plaintiff unless it has been specifically claimed. The grant of the degree of specific performance of court is discretionary. Point out which one of the following ground of the court shall not refuse the degree for the specific performance. In case where the contract is not enforceable at the instant of the other party. Under section 21 of Specific Relief Act, the court shall not award the compensation unless the plaintiff is claimed in any party. Any person suing for the specific performance of contract for transfer of immoral property may be appropriate case for possession and partition, separate possession of the property in the addition of such performance, a refund of any earnest money, deposit paid by the or made to in any case claim the specific performance is refused. Which section of the SRA provided liquidation damage not bar the specific performance? Section 23. Which section of the SRA deal with the bar of the suit for the compensation for breach after dismissal of the suit for a specific performance? Section 24. In case of a specific performance of contract, right of the party as governed by the basic principle of equity and law. A specific performance of contract will never be ordered if damage are the adequate remedy. A specific performance of any contract is granted at the discretion of the court. In a suit for a specific performance of contract, the plaintiff seeks only if he establishes that prima facie case in his favor. Which one of the following is incorrect? There is a bar of the decree for a specific performance if there is a clause in the contract breach of non-performance, sum of money specified therein the paid. A specific performance of contract, build to or repair order, where the plaintiff has subsequently interest in the performance of the contract and he cannot compensate the adequate damage, where the plaintiff is subsequently interested in the performance of contract but the compensation in damage, where the plaintiff is no substantial interest in the performance of contract and can be compensated in the damage. Special performance of any contract may be ordered where there exists no standard for asserting actual damage and non-performance of the act to be done. Which one of the following contract is specifically enforceable? A contract to sell and B contract to buy the resident building. Where the specific performance of contract can enforce against transferee of immovable property contracted to transfer, yes, only in the certain circumstances. When no date of the performance of contract is fixed, where which the time period of the limitation is filed, suit for a specific performance of contract is start. The date when the plaintiff has noticed the performance is refused. Whether in any suit for a specific performance of contract, transfer of immovable property, burden of proof of the plaintiff to prove that breach of contract cannot be adequate relief in the compensation of money. No. Which one of the following proposition is not correct? A contract which depends on the personal qualification and violation of the party is specified to be enforced. A suit for a specific performance of agreement of sale, immovable property, the plaintiff may avert to proving that the plaintiff is ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. Who may obtain the specific performance of contract in his favor? Any party of the contract, any representative in the interest of the principal of any party, when the companies is entered into the contract and subsequently became amalgamated with another company, the new company arising out of the amalgamation. In a suit for a specific performance of contract for sale, the plaintiff should allege that he will be ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. In a case where time has not been fixed for the performance of the agreement, the court refuses to grant the relief, a specific performance to the plaintiff on the ground that suit was not filed within the reasonable time. The order is legal. A court may not exercise its discretion of a specific performance of any contract when the contract gives the plaintiff an unfair advantage over the defendant. In a suit for a specific performance of contract where earnest money is paid by the plaintiff, it can be refundable only if they specifically claimed. To claim the specific performance of contract, it is necessary that to plead and prove that the plaintiff has always been ready and willing to perform a part of the contract. Jurisdiction of the court to enforce a specific performance of contract is discretionable. Where the plaintiff in a suit for a specific performance prove the existence of the agreement and its non-performance by the defendant, the court is not bound to issue a decree specific performance since the relief is discretionary. A court may deny the specific performance of an agreement to sale of immovable property if the performance of the contract would involve hardship on the defendant which he did not foresee, and non-performance would be involve no such hardship on the plaintiff. Specific performance of contract means actual execution of contract according to its stipulation. Which one of the following section lays down that the rule for discretionary power of the court to grant a specific performance is not arbitrary but sound and reasonable? Section 20. Provision regarding the specific performance of the part of contract are contained in Section 12 of SRA. Under Section 9 of SRA, the defendant may plead the defend under Law of contract. Under section 12 of SRA deal with specific performance of the part of the contract. Which one of the following is a contract that cannot be specifically enforceable? Both the contract which in its nature determinable and also depend on the personal qualification. Under section 12 of SRA permit the grant of specific performance in the part of contract where the part left unperformed bear only small portion of the whole in the value and admit of the compensation in money. The jurisdiction of the court and decree of specific performance under Specific Relief Act 1963. None of these. What is the case of a specific performance of contract which is enforceable? Where there exists no standard form of asserting the actual damage caused by the non-performance. When the act is agreed to be done, such as compensation in money for its non-performance would not be afford the adequate relief. Which one of the following statements is incorrect in reference of the Specific Relief Act? D is incorrect. Which one is correct? An injunction cannot be granted when the plaintiff has no personal interest in the matter. Obligation include every duty to enforce the law. Specific performance of contract can be enforced in the favor of person who would not be entitled to recovery for the compensation of the breach. In which one of the following case the performance of contract would be specifically enforceable by the court? A contract to sell a painting as well as the dead painter, as well known dead painter. In a suit for a specific performance of contract, the court can award the compensation to the plaintiff only if the plaintiff claims such compensation is in plaint. Ramesh and Geeta were the husband and the wife living in the Bangalore. Ramesh was income tax officer, Geeta was a school teacher. They had two sons studying in the school in the Bangalore. Ramesh, parent of Ramesh, were also staying with him. Ramesh was transferred to Madras and he was leave his family behind at Bangalore. He promised to send every Monday rupees of 30,000 to meet his family expenditure to his wife. Ramesh did not send any money for the Madras. If Geeta filed a suit for a specific performance of contract, then which one of the following is correct? Family agreement are not contract and hence not ordered for the specific performance can be ordered. In a suit for a specific performance of contract, the plaintiff must ever prove that he is always ready to willing and perform his part. Can a plaintiff sue a defendant compensation for a breach of contract after dismissing for the suit of a specific performance? Yes. A plaintiff plead a declaration of contract as a void and in the alternative form of a specific performance of contract it is irregular. Chapter 3 Gratification of the instrument. Section 26. Section 26 of a Specific Relief Act contains the provision regarding rectification of instrument. Mistake contemplated under Section 26 of a Specific Relief Act is bilateral mistake, mutual mistake, mistake in framing of the instrument. Under Section 26 of a Specific Relief Act 1963, the rectification of instrument on the ground of fraud and mutual mistake, the time limit for discovery the fraud and mutual mistake is no time is fixed. Section 26 of a Specific Relief Act fixes the time for the discovery of mistake and fraud be none of the above. When due to the fraud played by the party, a contract in writing does not express its real intention, then appropriate remedy would be a suit for Rectification of instrument. Section 26 of Specific Relief Act contained in the provision regarding rectification of the instrument. Which one of the following remedies available when the instrument does not expressly real intention due to the fraud and mutual mistake? Rectification of instrument. Instrument may be rectified if mutual mistake of the party. Under Section 26 of Specific Relief Act, the court may direct it to rectify instrument so as the express of the real intention of the party if there is a mutual mistake of the parties. Chapter 4. Rescission of the contract. Section 27 to 30. A relief of rescission is granted in the case of both void and voidable contract. Rescission if the contract allowed if where the contract is voidable at the instant of the plaintiff, where the contract is void, where the third party acquired the interest in the contract in the good faith. A suit for the rescission of contract by the person having interest in it can decreed in the favor of where the contract is voidable at the option of the party. Rescission may not be adjudicated by the court where the plaintiff has expressly or impliedly rectified the contract. In which one of the following cases rescission of the contract is adjudicated by the court where the contract is voidable by the plaintiff? A declaration made under a Specific Relief Act is binding the party to the suit, the person claiming through party to the suit. Chapter 5. Cancellation of instrument. Section 31 to 33. Section 31 of Specific Relief Act deal with cancellation of the instrument. Section 31 of SRA applicable to based on the protective and preventive justice. A is a minor who poses himself as a measure and execute a mortgage before B of 10,000. B file a suit for the recovery of loan. A take a defense that he is not competent to contract when took the loan. In such situation, which one of the following statement is correct? Contract is void, but minor may order to pay 10,000 rupees back. Under Section 33 of SRA, compensation is payable if party receive the benefit. Chapter 4. Declaration of decree. Section 34 and 35. As per Section 34 of Specific Relief Act, no court shall make any declaration in a case where plaintiff being able to seek further relief other than mere declaration title omit to do so. A declaratory decree under Specific Relief Act can claim be denial. Provision of Section 34 of Specific Relief Act related to a declaration. Under Section 34 of Specific Relief Act, a declaration can be sought by a person having a legal character or right as the property which denial. No court shall order to the plaintiff is entitled a right if he is able to seek further relief than mere declaration but omit to do so. Section 34 of Specific Relief Act 1963, a declaration of the legal character or right of the property. Declaratory decree can be granted under dash of Specific Relief Act. Section 34. Provision of Section 34 of the relief related to suit for declaration. The grant of refusal of the relief declaration of the injunction under provision of Section 34 of Specific Relief Act is discretionary. A legal character and the right under Section 34 of Specific Relief Act must be specific. A declaration given by Section 34 of Specific Relief Act is binding on only one of the party to a suit, only the person claiming through the party to the suit, trustee of the trust which a party to the suit. What is the effect of decree of the declaration title passed by the court? Bind the party to the suit only. The provision of the section 34 of SRA is related to declaratory suit. A suit filed for X for the declaration of 1-year-old boy alleged to born and defendant wife W is not a son. The suit for the competent and maintainable under section 34 of Specific Relief Act 1963. Part 3 Preventive Relief, Chapter 7 Injunction generally. Section 36 to 37. Under Section 36 of Specific Relief Act, the preventive relief is granted by injunction. What is true and temporary injunction? Continuous until the certain specific period. Find out the incorrect statement in respect of temporary injunction. D. Which one is correct statement? Preventive relief granted at the discretion of the court, such are as continuous until a specified time and until further order of the court, regulated by the Code of Civil Procedure. An injunction granted during the pendency of suit under section 33 or 37 of SRA is known as temporary injunction. Which one of the following statement is wrong? Perpetual injunction can be granted without the notice of the hearing the defendant. An injunction granted during the pendency of suit under section 37 of SRA is known as temporary injunction. Which one of the following is true regarding temporary injunction? It continue until certain specific time. Under section 37 of SRA, temporary injunction is granted by at any stage of the suit. An injunction granted during the pendency of suit under section 37 of SRA is known as temporary injunction. Injunction granted under SRA may be temporary or perpetual. Under section 37 of SRA, temporary injunction is granted by at any stage of the suit. Perpetual injunction is governed by Specific Relief Act 1963. Perpetual injunction means judicial process thing prevented in wrongful act, preventive in the nature. What is the distinction between injunction order and attachment order? Injunction order bind it's only the party of the suit, whereas attachment is not only bind the party of suit but also the third party. Chapter 8 Perpetual Injunction, Section 83, 38 to 44. The circumstances under which the perpetual injunction can be granted have been enumerated in Section 38 of the SRA. Which one of the following statement is wrongly? Perpetual can be granted order, notice and the hearing the defendant. The perpetual injunction is granted to the plaintiff to prevent the breach and the obligation existed in this favor. Under clause 3 of section 38 of SRA, perpetual injunction can be granted only if the necessary to prevent multiplicity of the proceeding. The general principle on which the perpetual injunction could be granted in the SRA 1963 is section 38. Which of the section of SRA provision regarding the perpetual injunction has been made? Section 38. In which one of the following cases would the court not grant the perpetual injunction where defendant invades to invade the plaintiff right or enjoyment of the property, where the defendant is an agent of the plaintiff? Perpetual injunction can be granted under section 38 of SRA is when it is necessary to prevent multiplicity of the proceeding. Mandatory injunction is granted under SRA in section 39. The relief by way of mandatory injunction is discretionary. A mandatory injunction is both restitutory or probatory. Mandatory injunction under the section 39 of SRA is granted by to prevent the breach complaint of to compel the performance of requisite act. The provision of the mandatory injunction is regulated by the dash section of the SRA, section 39. Provision regarding the grant of mandatory injunction has also been made under which one of the following section of SRA, section 39. When the mandatory injunction cannot be issued, when the injunction can be compensated by damage. A. File a suit for mandatory injunction of the legal disconnection of electricity. A. Also suffered a loss in the business on account of non-supply of electricity. The suit for mandatory injunction is dismissed. A. Thereafter file a suit for damage of suffering of loss. The subsequent suit is barred under SRA. A claim for the damage of the suit for injunction is laid down in under section 40 of the SRA. As per section 40 of SRA Act, where the instrument of is evidence of different right and different obligation, the court may proper case cancel it a part allowed to stand for the residue. Under which one of the following circumstances the court can grant a perpetual injunction? To prevent the multiplicity of the judicial proceeding when the compensation in the money would not afford the relief, the standard of the asserting the actual damage exists. When injunction cannot be granted, when the plaintiff has no personal interest in the matter, to prevent the breach of contract for the performance of which would not be specifically enforceable, to prevent the continuing which the plaintiff accusant. If a contract comprises of the agreement to do an act and also not to do a certain act, injunction can grant to compel performance of both of them. A relief of the injunction cannot be granted when equally effective relief to obtain by other usual mode is proceed. The plaintiff has not come to the court with clean hand to prevent the nuisance when it is not a reasonable clear. Which one of the following statement is incorrect in context of section 41 of the SRA? E. None of these. Which one is correct? The court cannot grant injunction to restrain any person from applying any legislative body. Court cannot grant an injunction to prevent continuing breach which plaintiff accuses. The court cannot grant an injunction for restraint of any person for instituting and prosecuting any proceeding in the criminal matter. The court cannot grant injunction when the plaintiff has got no personal interest in the matter. Under SRA, when the injunction can be granted to prevent the breach of contract for the performance of which would be specifically enforced. Section 42 of SRA provided for injunction to perform a negative agreement. What is true and perpetual injunction? What is the true of perpetual injunction? It is a judicial process, preventive in nature. The things prevented is wrongful act. Injunction can be granted in a suit if which one of the following specific performance can be enforced. Mandatory injunction is a prospective in operation, concurrent in operation. If A is a medical advisor, he demand money from B, which B denies to pay. A then threaten to make known as effective the communication to him, the patient. B may obtain the prohibitory injunction to restrain A from doing so. B may obtain the mandatory injunction ordering A to destroy all written communication made by A in the patient of A. In which one of the following court can grant the injunction? To restrain any person from deposition of the force. Whether a suit of the social club for decree of perpetual injunction granted against the police if maintain the restrain them from filing a criminal proceeding as according to the plaintiff police harass it? No. Whether injunction to perform a negative agreement granted? Yes. An injunction under SRA can be granted to restrain the publication of defamatory statement. Section 44 of SRA is related to repeal. Miscellaneous. SRA can give in the form of injunction stay specific remedy. SRA is a product of 9th Report of Law Commission of India on SRA in 1877. A specific relief can be granted for enforcing the individual civil right. A specific relief is applied to both movable and immovable property. A specific performance of remedy for the breach of contract exists in SRA. SRA Act is remedial in nature, protective in nature, substantive in law. Basic specific relief is law of equity. The relief provided under SRA is discretionary. The plaintiff proved that there is a breach of contract for transfer of immovable property. The court had the discretion to grant the refuse such decree. The word expression is used to be defined in SRA 1963 has the same meaning as defined as Indian Contract Act. It defined in the act. Under SRA, a suit for recovery of possession can be filed only in respect of movable property. What is the meaning of the principle of quanta timed in the context of law of injunction? Some future probable injunction to right in the interest of the person. Which one of the following is not correctly matched? A. Correctly matched power to award compensation in certain case. Section 21. Liquidation of damage is not barred of specific performance. Section 23. Temporary and perpetual injunction. Section 37.